These are the wildest years vintage Hollywood and classic Hollywood ever produced, when sex, crime, and controversy ruled the silver screen during pre-code Hollywood, before America's moral guardians slammed the door shut forever. From 1930 to 1934, this golden age of Hollywood unleashed films so scandalous that many remain shocking even by today's standards. Picture this: Barbara Stanwyck literally sleeping her way to the top floor by floor in Babyface. Jean Harlow seducing her way through Red-Headed Woman, proving that Scandal sold tickets. James Cagney shoving a grapefruit in his girlfriend's face, and audiences cheering for the Gangster. Edward G. Robinson gunning his way to the top in Little Caesar alongside the Public Enemy and Scarface. Mae West delivering lines so loaded with sexual innuendo that censors didn't even catch half of them. This was Hollywood before the rules, before the restrictions, before Will Hayes and his infamous code sanitized American cinema for 34 years. But how did we get here? And more importantly, how did it all come crashing down? The story begins with scandal, mountains of it. In 1921, America's highest-paid film star, Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle, was raking in $1 million a year when he attended a party in San Francisco that would destroy his career forever. When aspiring actress Virginia Rappe died after the party, Arbuckle found himself accused of rape and murder. The yellow press had a field day. William Randolph Hearst allegedly said the Arbuckle scandal sold more newspapers than when the Lusitania went down. Though Arbuckle was eventually acquitted, and the third jury even issued a written apology for his treatment, the damage was done. Add to this the mysterious murder of director William Desmond Taylor and the drug-related death of silent star Olive Thomas, and Hollywood was drowning in bad publicity. By 1922, legislators in 37 states were introducing nearly 100 film censorship bills. Enter Will Hayes, the man who would change Hollywood forever. This politically connected lawyer who had run Warren G. Harding's presidential campaign got hired by the studios in 1922 for the lavish sum of $100,000 a year, nearly $2 million in today's money. The New York Times called him the Screen Landis, comparing him to the baseball commissioner who cleaned up that sport after the 1919 World Series gambling scandal. But here's the thing about Hayes. He started out as a pretty weak enforcer. In 1924, he introduced something called the Formula, basically a gentleman's agreement for studios to self-regulate. 3 years later came the Don'ts and Be Carefuls, a list of 11 absolute taboos and 26 subjects to handle carefully, yet enforcement remained spotty at best. Then, in 1929, two men changed everything. Martin Quigley, a devout Catholic who published Motion Picture Herald, and Father Daniel A. Lord, a Jesuit priest particularly worried about the effect of talking pictures on children. Together, they drafted what would become the Motion Picture Production Code, officially adopted by Hollywood in 1930. The code was remarkably specific and morally rigid. No picture should lower the moral standards of those who see it, it declared. It banned profanity, nudity, drug use, white slavery, miscegenation, and any sympathetic portrayal of crime. Adultery could only be shown if it was clearly condemned. Even married couples had to sleep in separate beds, a rule that would persist for decades. This was a stark contrast to the 1915 Mutual Film Corporation v. Industrial Commission of Ohio decision that left movies without First Amendment protection, making them vulnerable to any moral crusade. But here's what's fascinating. From 1930 to 1934, the code existed mostly on paper. Hollywood largely ignored it, and this period, pre-code Hollywood, produced some of the most daring films in American cinema history. Babyface. Take Babyface from 1933. Barbara Stanwyck plays a woman who literally uses sex to climb from the basement to the penthouse of a bank, seducing man after man on each floor. The film was so explicit that even the lenient censors of the time demanded cuts. Shot in just 18 days for $187,000, it earned $452,000 at the box office, proving that Scandal sold. The Divorcee. But Stanwyck wasn't alone in pushing boundaries. Norma Shearer in The Divorcee from 1930 essentially created the template for the sophisticated pre-code woman who took control of her own sexuality and destiny. This film is often cited by film historians as the motion picture that inspired the entire pre-code female archetype. Little Caesar, The Public Enemy, and Scarface. Or consider the gangster films that made James Cagney and Edward G. Robinson stars. Little Caesar, The Public Enemy, and Scarface didn't just show crime. They made criminals sympathetic, even heroic. These weren't cautionary tales but celebrations of rebellion against authority. She done him wrong and I'm no angel. These movies dealt openly with abortion, homosexuality, drug addiction, prostitution, and interracial relationships, subjects that would be forbidden for the next 30 years. As film historian Thomas Doherty documented in his definitive book Pre-Code Hollywood, this era represents cinema at its most uninhibited. But the party couldn't last forever. The Catholic Church was watching, and they weren't amused. In 1933, Archbishop John T. McNicholas of Cincinnati founded the National Legion of Decency, mobilizing America's 20 million Catholics against Hollywood's perceived immorality. The Legion created a rating system, A for acceptable, B for objectionable in part, and C for condemned. They asked Catholics to pledge to avoid immoral films. The effect was immediate and devastating. When Cardinal Dennis Doherty called on Philadelphia's 800,000 Catholics to boycott movie theaters in May 1934, box office receipts plummeted 40%. Nationwide, ticket sales fell 20% as over 10 million Catholics signed boycott pledges. Hollywood panicked. On June 13, 1934, the studios amended the code and established the Production Code Administration, headed by Joseph Breen, a strict Catholic. Starting July 1, 1934, no film could be released without a seal of approval. The penalty for violation, $25,000, nearly $500,000 in today's money. The transformation was swift and dramatic. The first film to receive the new seal was The World Moves On, a tame historical epic. Meanwhile, some pre-code films were so scandalous that Jack Warner ordered all prints of Convention City destroyed. It's now considered a lost film. Breen ruled Hollywood with an iron fist for 20 years. Even classics like Casablanca weren't immune. The original script had Humphrey Bogart shooting the Nazi officer in the back, but Breen forced changes to make the violence more justified. The famous romance between Bogart and Ingrid Bergman had to be carefully handled to avoid implications of adultery. The code's reach extended beyond live-action films. Even cartoon character Betty Boop was transformed from a sexy flapper in a short dress to a conservative housewife in a long skirt. The code literally changed the shape of American entertainment. For 34 years, the Hays Code governed what Americans could see on screen. Married couples slept in separate beds, crime never paid, good always triumphed. The word damn appeared exactly once in Gone with the Wind, and only because it was in the original novel. The end came gradually. In 1952, the Supreme Court's decision in Joseph Burstyn v. Wilson finally granted First Amendment protection to films, overturning the 1895 ruling that had left movies defenseless against censorship. Breen retired in 1954, and enforcement slowly weakened. By the 1960s, foreign films and independent productions were challenging the code's restrictions. When Jack Valenti became head of the Motion Picture Association in 1966, he recognized that the old system was dying. On November 1, 1968, the code was officially replaced by the modern rating system we know today, G, M, later PG, R, and X. Looking back, the pre-code era represents Hollywood at its most uninhibited, 4 brief years when filmmakers could explore any subject, push any boundary, challenge any taboo. These films shocked audiences, drove censors to distraction, and ultimately triggered the most comprehensive censorship system in American entertainment history. The irony is delicious. In trying to clean up Hollywood, the censors first had to catalog every sin, creating a detailed guide to exactly what made those pre-code films so wickedly entertaining. Today, as we stream content that would have horrified Joseph Breen, it's worth remembering those 4 wild years when Hollywood truly had no limits, and the moral crusade that ended the party forever. The legacy of both eras continues to shape entertainment today. reminding us that the battle between artistic freedom and moral standards is as old as Hollywood itself.